Khandare, former Principal Advisor, Ministry of Defense. Mr. Rajiva Ranjan, former ACIDS. Mr. Sai Krishna, CEO Saptang Labs. Mr. Pranav R. Satyanath, Policy and Government Relations, Defy Gravity's Technologies. Mr. Arun Radhakrishnan, Chief Growth Officer. Thank you. Now I would like to give mic to the chair of the session.
Jai Hind, ladies and gentlemen. What we'll do is I'll have the panel first speak for about 5 minutes each, or maybe 5 to 8 minutes each. After that we will have some discussion, but the basic issue that we want to bring out here is the importance of national security and space put together. And we will give enough time for question and answer also, because I'm sure many of you would have questions or comments to make. So we will work on that. But before I start with the panel, just a couple of thoughts that I have. People talk about space as a domain. Now space as a domain and national security. So many people feel that national security means military. That is not correct. Every possible thought should go, if a country is economically strong, then your national security is ensured. If your technology is up to the mark, then national security is ensured. If your energy security, agricultural security, water security, just one thought before I ask the panel to start. When you saw Operation Sindoor, because that is fresh on everyone's mind, what people are talking of is what the missiles did to the air bases. But give a thought what Indus Water Treaty will do to the Pakistan economy, and how will space contribute to that. Will you also as a country be vulnerable to what China can do to you on water security, and how does space fit into that? So I'm just leaving one non-kinetic domain with you to understand. When we talk, okay, last about 10-15 years people have been talking about next war will be on water. Now here everything has arrived on your doorstep, and all those people who feel that Indus Water Treaty was just announced, it's not so. I know for sure 2019 onwards a lot of study has been done on this. A lot of geospatial imagery has been worked on that. What is the pondage, the holding capacity of the big dams? So there are so many things which are there. I think when we discuss such things will come out, and if it doesn't come out, I would request the audience to bring that out. So I think we'll start with Rajiv. Yeah.
Follow the leader, as they say in the military. So I'll also take to the stage General Khandare, distinguished panel, guest. While sir told us 5 to 7 minutes or thereabout, I had it structured for a little longer, so I'll cut short and keep myself within the time frame which has been given. So essentially, the space for the Indian community was largely driven by a dream of Dr. Sarabhai. It's only in the Kargil war we transformed and the military started coming into the space. And now if you look at all the nations are talking of hard kill, soft kill, co-orbital and hypersonic, every of this thing is going to be affected by the space. And some of the people are also talking of multi-domain war fighting operation and awareness. That's another place where you see the space. And for India, in last 2019 to 22, you found the transformation opening up, depth space challenges, etc., and private industry coming in, and you see a large number of opportunity coming in. So just imagine what we saw of Sindoor. It was talked by General Khandare, if the imagery of the live strike at center of gravities of those places were played into the by media into the rooms and the houses of the adversary, the psychological impact it will have. They are seeing the live missile being hit. This is what you can achieve through the screen. So cognitive dominance or the decision support in multi-domain, when you fuse the information of every possible domain from physical to biological to the electronic to RF, you have complete understanding what's happening around. And that's the place space comes into the play. Space being dual in nature, as General Khandare said earlier, it will affect every possible domain of comprehension of national power, which is from economy going into the military. And just imagine what human race did earlier: conquered land, then to the maritime, then to the aerial, now space. Space mining, near gravity, zero gravity, agriculture, medicine, manufacturing, everything would transform. Transportation, trade, commerce, everything would be in future controlled by the space. So it's just not a new domain for warfare, it's a domain for the national power. Just a little on vulnerability and threat. From SAT to RPO, soft kill, all kind of a jamming, and also spoofing and the cyber operation, all of them are maturing. Obviously, world is looking at the soft kill now more than the hard kill. In the hard kill, the option of the RPO is taking a prominence. So generally, we need to be aware of our vulnerability. Legacy system are all vulnerable in terms of outdated encryption, command control. Single point failure exists in every kind of a transmission, data transmission possible. Electronic hardening for our satellite is very weak insofar as the soft kill, etc. is concerned. And the hard kill, SSA and other thing, of course, there is a vulnerability out there. So where is the role of civil industry in this particular domain? You have to modernize the traditional space capabilities, be it ISR, be it SATCOM, GNSS, weather, you name it, all possible domain of the military warfare, you have to modernize that. And one other thing I look at is how do you make your future small satellite standards, modular, where the hardware and the software both can be tweaked in the orbit by on-orbit maintenance and pushing the software from the ground. So therefore, resilience of your asset goes up. The same you need to do for your ground and other things. SSA, on-orbit maintenance, early warning and missile defense. You see the non-contact warfare, drones and missiles are being fired. Why not collaborate, public partnership, private partnership, and develop a missile defense for us from the space? Secure communication, AI, ML integration for cloud protection, electronic countermeasures in which various form of antennas, SDR, DAMAs, communication gateways, to talk from one domain to another domain, we need that. Some of the strategic capability India must build is National Integrated SSA, Cyber Sub-Agency under DCYA to ensure we have a cyber security at least in the strategic domain. Defense civilian fusion under a grand umbrella, and that umbrella now can move into space commission for whole of the nation approach. Standardization and modularization of the thing. Also something I would like to highlight here is Guardian module, sir. Each satellite is carrying one nano satellite which can be detached. It's like an infantryman's rifle. Detaches from him and goes out for defensive, offensive, whatever you want to do it onto the adversary. If you were to do Galwan, each of my satellite will launch, go cross him, near him, say if you do anything beyond, I'm there. And the best form of deterrence for the northern adversary is space. If you can blind him and make him deaf, you won the battle. Also, I need a marsupial satellite which once it reaches its orbital region, it sends out a swarm for a defensive and offensive operation. And Guardian module itself has got its proximity sensors and also passive and active countermeasure response. And of course, marsupial nanosatellite and those kind of thing also. You can use it for proximity, push him out from the orbit, let him spend fuel, life goes. Jamming, blinding, and kinetic disabling. All you have to do, बच्चे में हम लोग एग्जॉस्ट पाइप में केला डाल देते थे, उसके सैटेलाइट के इंजन के पीछे you put that your own small one, that satellite is useless. Policy recommendation, you need a national space security strategy driven by MOD and DSA, wherein whole of the nation approach is brought in, and all this thing is done under a space commission at a grand level. Mandate space resilience audit, but also have regular drill of security with the private industry. For that, this is what the Chinese did, sir. The generals have gone to all kind of industry. They mapped each capabilities, industry, innovators, academia, and thereafter they are inviting for the exercises. In one of the recent exercises, we had invited the space industry for the Air Force exercise. Fantastic, guys. You all did yeoman service for us. SSA information which you gave us was brilliant. So this is what, when we do train together, work together, you come up to the expectations. In the, before I conclude, global partnership is also paramount in terms of various accords, etc. Under that, you talk of the military cooperation. Start putting down the military and space cooperation also, so that space being the next domain of the warfare you have captured. SSA data and various other communication. When you are talking of your ISR communication, have a small amount of your bandwidth being offered by those guys, so that something like what is Elon Musk is doing for other guys. So therefore, in the end, India's space security is no longer adjunct to the national security, but because space itself is a new domain for comprehension national power, from economy, trade, to technology. If you master technology and commerce, you have the military power strong. All the three together, you have comprehension national power together. And in the next war, may begin and end in the space. Of course, 1991 is called as the first space war, but we are seeing rapidly the way space is playing into our warfare. It's imperative that India prepares and protects and prevents anything happening in this frontier, so that we get our rightful place in the global community. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. We'll just hear about the foundational issues of how cyber and how space is important for the national growth and national security. Over to you. Rajiv has brought out a number of very valid issues. Specifically, subsequently, maybe Rajiv, you can even talk of to do all this, what is the change that is required in the Space Council, and because your point about MOD driven. So how does it happen when you are not even there in the Space Council in adequate number? Over to you.
Thank you, Jen Khandare. It's an extreme honor to be invited to speak on this panel, especially among people whom I've learned from so greatly, including ABM Ranjan and Jen Khandare. ABM Ranjan gave a broad overview of some of the priorities that we should have in space. But I would like to take a step back. He outlined about how we should prioritize national security and how we should think about national security. But I would like to actually take a step back and fundamentally think about what does space security actually mean for national security. This idea of space security has existed for over 3 decades. The United States and the Soviet Union had several great ideas in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and continue to this day. Their evolution of national space strategy and space doctrine has evolved considerably to to the extent that the United States today is boldly able to put out a space warfighting framework and declare space as a warfighting domain. Indeed, they have the technological capabilities to support those missions to fight wars in space. But what is it for India, where only the last decade is that space security has taken a very forefront as a part of national security? Is our priority similar to that of the United States? Do we have the capabilities to take on the missions that the United States actually takes on today or even the next decade? I don't think so. So we should fundamentally assess what is space for India's national security. This is what I believe. Space services or space for national security exists fundamentally to support our forces to fight on Earth, whether they're conflicts or wars. In the Indian context, in the next 10 years, this will be our objective. How do we enable, how space being an enabling domain to make our military more effective, to make it an effective warfighting machine? And this is fundamentally what I believe. So what does it mean to make sure that your armed forces is fundamentally supported by space? First, it means they have secure, reliable, and untampered space data that is reaching them on a continuous basis. Second, they have reliable PNT signals to enable jointness and to carry out the precision strikes and the more jointly coordinated activities that are fundamental to warfighting. And third, it is important to have SATCOM, reliable SATCOM and SATCOM links to ensure that they're able to communicate and exchange data as and when required. But how do we actually achieve this? How do we actually achieve secure, reliable data? This has to be a foundational idea. And fundamentally, when we talk about any national security policy, there are some foundations. Think about India's nuclear policy. When we talk about India's nuclear policy, many of us, or even those of us who are casually interested, who have read the nuclear policy, there are three things that comes to our mind. First, India's policy is founded on credible minimum deterrence. Second, it is based on having a secure second strike capability supported by a triad. And third, finally, and the most importantly, what distinguishes India's nuclear doctrine is the no first use policy, right? So anyone you ask about nuclear policy, we are able to say these three words, three phrases, and be very proud of it. But what is it about space? What binds us in space? There have been many ideas that have been put forward in the last 5 to 6 years, very good ideas, but there's nothing that binds us together. So this is what I propose. If we as Indians are supposed to say what is our national security policy in space, I would like these three words to be spoken of. First, resilience. Resilience is the ability to continue to provide space services even after absorbing an attack. Second, redundancy. It is the ability to fight effectively even in the absence of space data. Third, entanglement. Entanglement is the fusion of civilian and military assets in order to support not just national military activities, but all national security and national economic activities, and in order to create complications for the adversary's calculus on how do you attack or how do you defend your assets. These are, I believe, these would fundamentally position India as not only a responsible space power, but also a space power whose vision is purely focused on supporting its forces, at least for the 10 to 15 years. Of course, going to the more fundamentals is for the armed forces, the MOD and the DSA. But I have put forward this idea, and I hope these ideas are taken forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranav. Thank you. Very good. And whatever you said, I think it's music to ears of the military people. And coming from you, I think it's very good. Very nice. And maybe you can amplify subsequently, because what you've given out is the foundation and enabling and empowering the military forces from space. So that is how I look at it. Maybe as we go ahead, you can build upon that. Now coming to specifically cyber, you can work on that.
So, pranams to everyone. I've learned a lot at this Indian Space Congress. I've been coming here for the last 3-4 years. It has been a wonderful experience to see quite an engaging audience and great experts in this field who speak to us. I want to reflect for a minute on the broad aspect of governance of space. Now, who owns the space? Everybody owns the space? Do we have a better governance mechanism to police it? What if an adversary builds a small robot which will come and destroy your satellites? What are your options? Where do you go and complain? Who will investigate? Who will enforce common sharing of space? So till these governance issues are not sorted, we need to have a different view about space. Now we have seen how United Nations Security Council deals with global problems. And I'm fairly certain most of us are not very happy with the way things are done. Now space is going to be an important area of not only fighting, but also for our growth, prosperity going forward. We should definitely focus on having a much greater say in the governance of space. The first point. I also want to add 2 more issues that deal with this. Now look at how our adversaries deal with the issue of space. Primarily the northern adversary. Northern adversary is fundamentally very clear that space is a military domain. It's a domain which must be secured for projection of their national power, be it for economic reasons, be it for military reasons. Whatever it is, they have a fundamental clarity. And since we deal with them, or we have to deal with them, I think we should give a much higher weightage and start looking at space also as a possible military domain or a national security domain. This must be reflected in not only in the policies and regulations of the government, but also in the mindset of our private sector. Because as we can see in the last 4 or 5 years, the Indian private sector has taken a significantly larger role, and I believe this trend will continue. Now I'll come to another main area of interest to me, which is cyberspace. So of course we all know that space is the 4th domain and cyber is the 5th domain. Cyber is also a legitimate domain. Cyber also has same problems. Cyber also has governance issues. Who controls cyberspace? No one and everyone. So till we come and solve these 2 spaces with a better governance structure, I believe we should take the threats that come to space from cyber domain very, very seriously. Almost all our space infrastructure is vulnerable, and we tend to generally focus largely on satellites. But I do believe even our ground infrastructure, our control systems, all of them are heavily vulnerable. I don't know if some of you can just research on the internet, you would definitely find when Stuxnet was launched, a lot of identification, a lot of command control signals that were received by the Stuxnet handlers were also from the Indian satellites. This serves as an example to highlight how, again, the cyberspace and the space both actively overlap with each other. I don't have to remind all of you what happened during Ops Indoor from the cyberspace point of view. We all know that Northern adversary is highly focused, motivated, and has built a great amount of expertise in targeting complex critical information infrastructure. Even though the term critical information infrastructure might seem daunting, it basically points to the main sources of our prosperity, which could be space, which could be anything. Now, we all know the type of ransomware attacks that were attempted on the ground terminals, the attacks that were made probably at our ground systems. These are all a wake-up call. And generally, we end up thinking national security is primarily a government's responsibility or the military forces' responsibility. As General Khandare has rightly highlighted, security is everybody's problem. I think we can use the analogy from Ops Indoor. When you see a missile landing at your doorsteps, you can't simply say it's government problem. It's your problem too. So the problem is far closer to home than we would really imagine. Now, what is the counter solution to this? The first thing that I think as private sector and industry partners we all have to accept is securing our satellites and our satellite control mechanisms is not just a cost issue, but it's a critical issue. So I think we have to shun a particular mindset key. Cybersecurity is a cost item. It's not a cost item, it's a critical, essential, non-negotiable item as an industry partner. And I do believe the regulators, if not today, will come up with it. So if we conceptualize securing our satellite infrastructure, command infrastructure, everything, whatever, wherever, whichever component you work as an industry partner, start with cybersecurity, I think it will make good business sense in the long run too. And second part, when we look at how do we respond to these attacks? So generally in cybersecurity space, people try to build rule-based systems. Now they are all being revamped with AI agents. Now building AI agents require data, require sharing of data, sharing of insights. Platforms like SIA, platforms like InSpace, I think are a good way forward. But I think private sector can also do their bit by sharing data with each other through industry organizations and others. So collectively, this is how I do believe we will have a much better response in the coming decade to come, so that we can do our bit to ensure the Amrit Kal really turns out as Amrit Kal. With that remarks, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sai, and very valid points that you brought out, and we will work on that, and specifically where you say citizens partnership, we should develop that further. Arun, over to you. Let's hear you. And while Arun goes there, I just want to drive home one point: space empowered or space enabled solutions. So one of the biggest problem that the country faces is a number of people living in India illegally. They've crossed over from somewhere, but they are living here. I know for sure when I had met Dr. Subbarao first time, 2015, his company was providing solutions to Middle East countries, mapping each house and mapping each citizen. But that we haven't been able to do. 10 years have gone by. So maybe in the discussion somebody can bring that up. Arun, over to you.
Sure. So distinguished guests and distinguished panelists, it's an honor to be here. So this is my first time actually. I'm speaking on a public forum in India, so please do forgive me. Right. All right, so I did my master's from Moscow, and I had a few of my classmates who fought in the war in Ukraine. So many of them actually mentioned that they would go together, plan a strike, and out of nowhere a drone just comes in or a missile just comes and takes out the entire unit. So over 200 plus satellites were utilized in the conflict in the Russia-Ukraine war to sort of map the battlefield. So we are coming to a time where the decisions on the battlefield are sort of regulated by the assets in space. So since all my distinguished speakers have touched on all the foundational issues, I'm speaking on just two aspects. One is that orbital maintenance, that the servicing of satellites is an issue which is a capability which every country in the world should possess. We are seeing that in the case of NVS2 or with Navig, these are strategic assets which had failures. And such failures during the time of conflict could actually lead to very potential vulnerabilities in the battlefield. So to develop the ability to repair satellites, to extend its life, is a capability that India must heavily invest on. And AVM Ranjan here, speaks passionately about this in many of the forums. So satellite servicing is one which we should certainly build on, specifically for our strategic assets. And the second aspect is to develop RPOD capabilities. So RPOD means rendezvous, proximity, operations, and docking. What SpaceX performed 2 months back is something which we should develop as a capability. One, having RPOD capabilities means that it is like a deterrent. It means that you can go and touch your enemy satellites, you can take out your enemy satellites. And it also prevents the hostile actors to not come towards us. And even if they were to take out our assets, we could outmaneuver them, counteract them. And these are two capabilities which India must strongly build on. That's it actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun. And first time public stage, very good, well done. And please don't be fooled by his look. He's 30 years old, so he knows what he's talking. Okay, Now I want to open up to the audience, but at the same time I want to bring out a few issues which actually plague the nation. Take for example a couple of sectors that you can think of. A country of India's dimension, why has the pace of growth been so slow? Is it because of the governance issues? Is there a solution in space? Is it law enforcement which is poor? Is there a solution from space? We all have been talking about outer space, how to keep our assets safe there. That is fine. But what else is needed? You all saw what happened during COVID, how the nation's growth just stopped. Is there a solution from space? You see how climate change is impacting the nation and the world. Is there some solution there? You look at education, you look at the remoteness of the country, you look at infrastructure growth, you see the saturation of the traffic infrastructure. Is there a case in point to use space for interlinking of rivers? And all this actually amounts towards your national growth and national security. If there are any thoughts, we would be very happy to hear. You can raise your hand and then identify yourself and talk. While we do this, I want to acknowledge the presence of General AP Singh. AP, please stand up. He's a hero in the manner that during Operation Sindoor, everyone realized that missiles were being shot down. He's from the air defense. He was the DG a couple of years back. And there are two particular things which I want to highlight is vintage weapons like L-70 and Zu-23. During his time, modification started, and it is to his success and his successors that a lot of these swarm drones were brought down by the simple solution of AD guns which were manned by our soldiers. AP, lots of gratitude to you. Thank you. Okay, we start from the audience. If there are any suggestions, comments, please contribute to national security. A little loudly.
So this is Ram from Modest Triagents. We work on managing triagents in space. So my question is to you, sir. Now, when we saw the operations in the so a lot has been spoken on the Barak systems and S-400s. Now, an analogy is looking at the Iron Dome in Israel. For a long time we thought it's unpenetrable, but it's already pushed the limit. And the way Iran surprised the hypersonics and all. So my question is, what we achieved in Operation Sindoor is incidental victory? Are we already prepared? Let's say if the adversary pushes us to the limit, can we also, kind of get over it? Or so I just want to know your opinion on that.
You know, possibly saying incidental victory is being a little unfair. So if you actually look at it, they initiated the entire operation by doing what they did in Pahalgam. Thereafter, it was our plan. So when we made a plan, it was purely against the terrorist ecosystem. It was not to touch any civilian, it was not to touch any military target. So we knew that if we are going to target the three tanzeems, what do we expect from there? Obviously, knowing Pakistan's psyche, they will do that quick retort all over again. So we were prepared for that. So when you say that in the escalation, in the escalatory ladder, you hit out at the terrorist infrastructure and you inform them that this is what we wanted to do, we've done that. We don't want to pursue it, but should you decide, we have an answer. And thereafter they started targeting what? Our civilians. Now when you look at the huge land border and the civilians who are living along the border, it is humanly impossible for every village to be given a Zu-23 gun or an L-70. Air Force has to protect as far as the air defense from enemy aircraft and missiles is concerned. But what is the latest menace is the drones. That is the one which caused maximum problem, whether it was in Uri, whether it was in Punch, whether it was in Rajouri or Jammu or Amritsar. Now India has to start preparing for the counter drone solution, that is priority 1. When you talk of Iron Dome, remember the size of Israel, and you look at the costly missiles that have to be fired to bring down, even if there is just a small iron projectile which has gone up. Look at the cost difference. So we have to now customize and make our solution. There are a lot of counter drone solutions which have already been proliferated all over, and much more is happening. As we discussed today, the armed forces are already doing trials for the counter drone solution. This is one. The entire issue about how to combat counter the drones is, there are 4 segments which are looked at. Whatever is along the international border, the BSF is expected to handle it. So BSF has also done a lot of this planning on this and acquisition. When it comes to line of control or line of actual control, that is where the army is in control. So the army is supposed to do that. When it comes to the hinterland, immediately behind the IB and the LC, it is for the state police to do that. When you come to VAs and VPs like the Prime Minister's residence or the South Block or the Parliament House or airports, then there is a specific responsibility of the CISF. And the overarching responsibility of all this comes with Air Force. So there are radars and that entire paraphernalia which is there. But most important is when you look at, say, Delhi, the ballistic missile defense is the responsibility of the Air Force, which is a separate topic. I don't want to dwell on that because there are many issues there. But here, as you look at what happened in Israel and Iran, was a different level of escalation where hypersonic missiles also got used. Every time you bring in a new missile to attack, you have to bring in that counter missile with a higher Mach speed missile going and targeting that. So this is a continuous race between the attacker and the defender. Now whether India is fully prepared or not, I think we have to just ensure that whatever we are doing, we just speed up. So counter drone solution is something which we have to proliferate in numbers, right? And as far as ballistic missile defense is concerned, you leave it to the people who are doing it. They are doing a good job out of it. Okay. Yes, whoever wants to take a mic and.
Thank you very much, General Khandare, because once you give that challenge of security, तो रगों में खून दौड़ने लगता है, थोड़ा सा जवानी आ जाती है देखो। अब you had asked, you have been mentioning about our space presence. I was privileged to be a part of the project which did the ground segment of INSAT-1. From there it was started, connectivity and my name is S.D. Satyanath. I am a civil servant and I am a physicist by trade. I joined the Indian civil service. Now the point is that all these disaster warning system has been installed, long time ago. I would say in the 70s and early 80s. But the disaster continues because is there something which we can do to safeguard the lives of people, notwithstanding that all the information is present? You are seeing the monsoon on the TV and you are seeing everything, but then the disasters continue. Himachal, for example, yesterday 5 people died and so on. So that is one question. What should we be do? Other question is a little disturbing to me. It is that now in the warfare, whosoever will have a better technology will win. For example, we won because S-400 and BrahMos were more powerful than what the Pakis had. So it's a very difficult situation. Somebody who will buy a better technology may win. In that situation, what will be the role of Army 1? The other is if the technology is fighting with technology, what is the land army doing? Whether the army will move into the territory or only whether the missiles will fire and that will be the end of the war. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, the first part is about there are sensors, there are warning systems, but there are disasters. we set up NDMA, we set up SDMA, there are so many things. But they still can't cope up, and they are more for rescue and relief. But what we need is more prediction. So that is the point where we have to move into a new domain where huge data capture and AI enabled predictions. And thereafter I started with the premise, is there a problem in governance? I think that again at the level of the administrators, they have to get more technology oriented and preventive measures have to be taken. That is one. But here let me also add another thing. I think this is the most appropriate time to highlight one more issue. Environmental warfare is also something which is either happening or will happen. I would urge all of you to go on open source and Google, and you'll just type river in the sky and you'll get to know what Chinese are doing. River in the Sky is a project which is for geoengineering, and Chinese have had in fact published a lot of material till 2017. After that they've just gone quiet. Now what does that mean? They started looking at moisture in the environment and being able to shift the moisture to their water deprived areas. Now is this science fiction? I would have agreed that this is science fiction, but somewhere in 2019 we discovered a floating buoy, BUOY, not a boy but BUOY, in the Bay of Bengal. And that was a Chinese buoy with the sole intent of monitoring the monsoon pattern. And then you link that dot with River in the Sky project. The idea is to be able to shift the moisture up and take it to the Tibetan region or to the desert region and green that entire area. There is another project which you must read, is the South-North Water Diversion Project of China. And all this put together, the strategic aim appears to be getting into a strategic depth to Western China, because the eastern portion is quite vulnerable to the Americans. So I think their whole idea is to green the entire area, have roads, highways have already come up, railways have come up, airports have come up. I think water and electricity are the two things for which even this dam on Brahmaputra river or series of dams, and then you link up this river in the sky. So everything we will have to now start preparing. One is based on climate change and naturally, and second is how Chinese are also playing with that. And geoengineering is not something new, or it's not the only thing which only China does. A large number of countries do that. We may not be doing it, but that is one part. And the second question where you said technology and what is the role of army thereafter. You know, with the kind of standoff weapons, and this particular Operation Sindoor is classic. Not a single soldier crossed the border, not a single pilot crossed the border, but you see the devastation that came up, and Maxar images showed how the airfields have been damaged. It will happen, but despite that, army will continue to do its land operations. You can keep punching somebody, but unless you go and stand on his ground, it is not yours. So boots on ground will determine who owns that particular area, and that is the leverage that will happen subsequently. If you do not go and capture that, you will have a defeated country promoting somebody as field marshal.
Hello. Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I just want to answer. Yeah. So the thing about data for disaster, sir, we have a lot of data, and we will continue to keep having a lot of data. But data by itself will not do anything. First, that data has to be interpreted and translated to actionable insights. And you need the organizational capacity to use those insights to actually prevent a disaster. data itself will not prevent disaster. That brings me about technology, and this is more broadly towards everyone who works on technology. There's a fundamental belief that technology will change a lot of things. I don't believe in that. Technology is only good as the people who use them. So when does technology actually become useful for the armed forces or anyone? When it is linked to a mission, and when it is linked to a mission and the mission execution. We have capabilities only when we know how to use the tech. So technology itself will not change. It is about how we use the technology doctrinally, which will really make the difference. So we should not be giving technology the agency. It's the human agency that drives technology. Thank you.
I'll just add here, technology and tactics are part of the same coin on the either side. And the tactics is where the human come. Even if he has got fantastic missiles at the drone, and I have a tactic, something called as CCD, camouflage, concealment and deception, then obviously I survive. Also, I have got an offensive concept of the tactics, wherein all his launcher, through space I keep tracking him and keep knocking out his launcher. Obviously, if he doesn't have a launcher, let him have a missile. Or the manufacturing facility, or the storage facility, I pick up and target those. So let them have thousands and thousands of the missiles. So therefore, it's a very complex thing. It's not as simple as just a number or a technology. It's, as brought out, it's a human ingenuity, adaptation to technology. Rapidly, how do you counter that emerging technology? The technology cycle, which was driven primarily by the procurement cycle of the armed forces, now has been brought down on the battlefield to 12 to 15 weeks in the European battlefield. So armed forces are also now learning. They had lost, the procurement cycle was be slow. So they are learning very fast how they can adopt and bring the technology much faster. Also on the battlefield, once it's coming, how the soldiers are coming up, how they are developing the counter. Everything is not as simple as the technology mastering. So may I just add one more? Space as a warfare, first time started featuring in 1971 Air Force doctrine of US Air Force. Thereafter, immediately, US Army took over the major chunk of the space. Thereafter, then Space Command was formed by the US Air Force, and eventually in 2019, Space Force was formed in US. So that was a trajectory in the Western world. In India too, we realized the importance in Kargil, and we have 1991 DSA being formed, and MOD and DSA combination and the services are now generally, they know the technology, they know the procurement cycle, they know the usage. The whole thing is now known to the armed forces. So therefore, which was an exclusive domain in the civilian of dream of Dr. Sarabhai, is now coming into the military in a big manner in India. So that's why, sir, I said it needs to come out from what we are right now in the approval and whole cycle, and MOD driven, maximum in the strategic domain money is there, utility is there. So therefore, this driven by maybe CDS or a defense secretary sits as a technology and represent in Space Commission, which is whole of the nation. Because why should strategic sector be out of the whole of the nation? You need to support in disaster, and whole asset needs to come into the war the way it happened in the recent. Entire national resources were given to the armed forces. So the same, where do you synthesize best? Space Commission. Whole approval cycle and everything will become much faster. Visibility and usability or to the other people in the disaster, railway or anything, they need S-band communication. Armed forces says, okay, use it. They need imagery. You have it. Flood disaster. So therefore, that is the place we need to. This is the hardware part. The software part is multi-domain operation I talked of. The data which is being derived from there, that is available to everybody through PM Stack. So we have a large number of missions, 9 missions, AI mission, compute mission, a whole lot of things. That is the place there they can synthesize. So the two places, Space Commission and PM Stack. Thank you, sir.
Actually, we are lucky to have General Dushyant here. He is the Director General of CLAUS, which is a think tank. And I'm sure in addition to whatever the lessons are being drawn here, a lot of things, Dushyant, you can take on. And this very valid issue of Space Council, where there has to be an ingestion of the military component, because when on one hand we are talking of space for everyone, and warfare, a silent warfare can happen, and that is the place where there is inadequate attention of the military, and the other missions also, like AI mission, quantum mission, there also these things can happen. So I just thought I'll highlight that. Any other question, please?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Nishit. I'm a member of the International Institute of Space Law, and I've been a researcher with the Institute of Air and Space Law as well. So I'll continue the conversation from Mr. Rajan, and we've talked about technical and operational aspects. I just wanted to add my cents on the law and policy bits. So the geopolitics of the day is such that even if a country does everything 100% right, and the sort of the world gangs up against it, then we are seeing the repercussions of it. This is not related to one incident. So I just wanted to bring it to the awareness and consciousness of this entire hall that there are military manuals being now negotiated. The Bumrah manual coming out of which was negotiated in a town in Australia, and there's the Milamos manual, which is the military manual which looks at international law which is applicable to military uses of outer space. There's some provisions. The Bumrah manual was negotiated with 22 state consultations. Milamos manual is so just some things that we should be keeping in our awareness and consciousness while we pursue all of these actions, and especially India, as India looks towards being a leader of the global south. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, very valid. And what you mentioned, I think, is yet another kind of a push towards next year's Space Congress or DevSat, in which this topic is extremely important to be included. And again, one more point here I want to highlight. You can look around yourself. You know, experts in space law, hardly any in India. If you are not able to develop this domain, you will always be appointing consultants from abroad, and obviously their expertise will be for their national interest. So I think very valid that you touch this issue. And it's not only space law, even maritime law. We don't have enough specialists there. So these are new domains. So in addition to technology, these skills and these verticals are extremely important. We would have loved to carry on with this discussion, but there is already a warning which has been given to me. We are running 10 minutes late. There is no penalty for it. So thank you so much.
I would like to take a moment to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the dignitaries on the dais. Thank you for gracing us with your presence, for sharing your insights and making this session truly enriching. Your valuable contribution have added great meaning to today's gathering, and we are truly honored to have you with us. As a token of gratitude and appreciation, we now present mementos to our eminent panelists. May I now request our chair for the session, Mr. Khandare, to present memento to Mr. Rajiva. And to Mr. Sai. Sai. And to Mr. Pranav. And to Mr. Arun. May I now request Dr. Subha Rao Pulluri, President, SIA-INDIA, to present memento to Mr. Khandare. I would request everyone to move forward for the group photo.